O'Brien. Deputy O'Brien.
If I may briefly just thank the people of Dublin Fingal for their support at the by-elections and congratulate my three colleagues also elected. I made a very conscious decision about 20 years ago to dedicate my life's work to the area of human rights. It was a time when immigration was new to Ireland, and I was determined to work to help ensure that, as society, we treat people new to our shores in a proper way, and that, as society, we recognise the huge richness and value it brings. So it is somewhat fitting that I stand before you today on my first day in Dáil Éireann, when the Irish Government is being questioned by the United Nations in Geneva, as we speak, on its record in upholding its commitments under the International Convention for the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. I'll give you some short points that the UN have raised in relation to Ireland's performance on tackling racism. It has criticised the Government for failing to reform its legal framework on hate crime and called for a clear, time-bound commitment to make the necessary changes in law. The 1989 Incitement to Hatred Act does not effectively combat hate speech, particularly online attacks. And members of An Garda Síochána still lack training on how to deal with racially motivated crimes. The UN has also questioned the impact and effectiveness of the state's traveller and Roma inclusion strategy, and also warned of discrimination towards Black Irish people and people of African descent in the Irish workplace. On direct provision, the UN has said there is an urgent need for improved reception conditions. This is the UN saying this, it's not me. Noting that a national action plan against racism has not been renewed since 2008, that's almost 12 years, the UN has questioned whether the state is planning to introduce a new plan and if a time frame exists. So my first question to you, Taoiseach, is, because I know there was some hesitation from the Minister in Geneva, in the context of all the above and the nastiness that has reared its head during the by-election and before, will you be planning to develop a national action plan against racism? And especially in the context of the by-elections and the various utterances by people in these houses and outside, can I ask you if you feel there is a general need for candidates and elected representatives to up their game in terms of how they speak about people who look different or are from a minority?
Thanks very much, Deputy. Once again, congratulations on your stunning by-election victory in Dublin Fingal. Ireland's cross-departmental delegation is appearing before the UN Committee of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. That's being headed by Minister Stanton, and will be asking questions in our combined 5th to 9th reports prepared and submitted under the Convention. And these reports cover the period from 2011 onwards. And I have to say, notwithstanding some of the events in recent weeks, I'm very proud to lead a government that has led the way on issues regarding integration, immigration and migration. Since the party I lead came to office, 120,000 people have been made Irish citizens, and I'm delighted that they are part of our family. We've accepted thousands of refugees from all over the world when other countries refused to do so. We sent our Navy to the Mediterranean to help rescue migrants and disrupt human trafficking. We've brought in new standards for direct provision, the McMahon standards, which make sure that the quality of accommodation has improved. We've also recognised traveller ethnicity for the first time, something that was resisted for a very long time by other governments. And we have the publication and implementation of the National Migrant Integration Strategy, and also a National Traveller and Roma Inclusion Strategy as well. In addition to that, of course, we have the Human Rights and Equality Commission, which was established in the previous government of Fine Gael and Labour. In relation to hate crimes, as you pointed out, our Incitement to Hatred Act is out of date. It dates from 1989 and does need to be updated. And that work is underway already. Not sure exactly the current status of it, but I think Minister Flanagan launched a public consultation on that only a few weeks ago. And should this all be here in the new year, and I'm sure it will be, I'd hope we can make progress in updating that legislation as well.
Deputy O'Brien for a further supplement.
So I guess you haven't answered the question. I suppose I should get used to this, but just to remind you that you didn't answer the question about whether you actually plan to develop a national action plan against racism. And I actually sit on the monitoring committee for the implementation of the migrant integration strategy. There are a limited number of actions in that in relation to racism, and I can tell you they're not being implemented. So just to put the question to you again, are you planning to develop a national action plan against racism? And also, do you feel that candidates and elected representatives need to up their game? Thank you.
We'll certainly give consideration to a national action plan against racism. We have established a new anti-racism committee, and that is a mandate to review current evidence and practice and to make recommendations to government on how to best strengthen our approach in tackling racism. So we have, as you know already, a national migrant integration strategy. As is the case with any strategy, it doesn't get implemented overnight, it gets implemented step by step over time. And I'm happy to give consideration to a national action plan against racism, but bear in mind a lot of that is being done already through the other programmes and other strategies that we have in place.
We